Gentlemen, I'd like to call the Tuesday, July the 11th, 2017 committee whole meeting to order. It's approximately 6:03 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Ross?
Here.
Councilman Burgess?
Here.
Councilman Shelley?
Here.
Councilman Maldonado? Councilman Williams, Vice Mayor Fairclough?
Here.
Mayor Porter?
Here. Any additions, deletions, deferrals? None? Order of business, tab 1. Is there a motion to move the minutes?
Move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tab 2. Mr. Manager?
Mayor, the City of Homestead was awarded a grant from the State of Florida Land and Water Conservation Fund Program for Audubon Park. The grant is for the amount of $200,000. This is a matching grant. The matching funds will be from the Parks and Recreation impact fees. The city's match will be $200,000. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution and authorize City Manager to accept the grant in the amount of $200,000 from the State of Florida Land and Water Conservation Fund Program, and also to execute the contract once it's made available.
Questions from council? Mr. Maytan, what is it anticipated being done in Audubon Park with the 200 or?
This grant, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. To let you know, this grant was, our grant writer was looking at it and was supposed to be a park that was close to water, which Audubon has the lake next to it. What we're looking at Parks and Rec doing is to put shade structures on the 2 playgrounds. So they'll have shade structures and a workout center by the basketball court.
We have a consistent problem out there with the vegetation that grows in the edge of the lake. You got any long-term plans to mitigate that problem, because it's a reoccurring problem all the time? You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do, Mayor. I can look into that. There's the companies, because you have to be certified in that, which Brightview is not certified. You have to be, we also use the same company for the lakes that we have at the old City Hall. I can get a price on that and see if we can look into that.
I just know that it's a consistent problem, in the community, the people that are around the lake. I mean, that grass gets really, really tall, and a lot of congregation of stuff in there. So that's fine. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. I mean, I know it comes up every couple of years.
Yes, sir, it does.
Any other questions from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 3.
Mayor, the City of Homestead was awarded a grant from the Florida Communities Trust Florida Forever program for Losner Park. The grant is for the amount of $528,759.30. This is a matching grant. The monies expended to purchase properties behind Losner Park will be accepted as the city's matching fund portion. The city's match will be $528,759.30. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution and authorize the city manager to accept the grant in the amount of $528,759.30 from the Florida Communities Trust Florida Forever program, and to execute the contract once it's made available.
Questions from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 4.
Mayor, the City of Homestead was awarded a grant from the State of Florida Cultural Facilities Affairs Grant Program for Losner Park. The grant is for the amount of $500,000. This grant requires a match amount of $1.5 million. Impact fees and the monies expended to purchase properties behind Losner Park will be accepted as the city's matching fund portion. Staff recommends the Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution and authorize the City Manager to accept a grant in the amount of $500,000 from the State of Florida Cultural Affairs Grant Program, and also to execute the contract once it's made available.
Questions from council? $500,000 grant. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Tab 5.
Mayor, RMPK funding is the city's grant service writer. No coincidence that we put the acceptance of the grants first before the expense for the grant writer. The existing contract has been depleted of funds. An additional $12,000 is needed to continue the services for the remainder of the fiscal year. This amendment will make the contract a total of $36,999.99. Staff recommends the mayor and council authorize the city manager to approve the amendment of an additional $12,000 to the existing contract for RMPK funding. And Mayor, I would also like to add that they're doing a phenomenal job for us, as you can see, as the awards are coming in.
Looks like a good investment.
Sure is.
Questions from council? Is there a second? All in favor? Motion carries. Tab 6.
Mayor, a grant application was submitted and approved by the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence in order to fund one full-time domestic violence police detective who works in collaboration with SOS, victim service provider, on cases of domestic violence and/or stalking. The grant award will fund 100% of the detective's salary and 42% of the detective's FICA for a total award of $77,747.28. The grant will begin on July 1st, 2017 and end on June 30th, 2018. There's a match of $25,915.76, which is met through the supervisor's salary of the detective assigned to the initiative. Staff's recommendation that the mayor and council approve the attached resolution and authorize the city manager to execute the grant agreement with the Florida Coalition Against Domestic Violence in order to fund one full-time police detective to investigate cases of domestic violence and stalking.
Question from council? Question, this is not a new hire. This is basically allocating an officer specifically to domestic violence? That's correct, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Tab 7.
Chief, did you want Sandy to deal with this one, or Sandy here?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm assuming that I'm responding to your question on if it's...
Why don't you just brief them a little bit on what the item is?
Okay. Basically, this is a grant that funds, we've had this grant for probably 8 years, and it funds currently Detective Whipple, who does all the domestic violence investigations, and he does it in collaboration with SOS, with the victim advocates, and also with Safe Space. So together, we work with the victims.
Sandy, it's the next item.
Sandy,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that
I'm
one's
on
already-
Florida Coalition.
We're through with that one.
I apologize.
Let's
I'm on
move.
the one before that.
We're on the Children's Trust part.
Okay, I'm ready for that one.
Tab? Okay, you can start over now.
Basically, this is a partnership grant with the Children's Trust, and it involves approximately 7 partners, and we all work together in order to address children's issues that are exposed to violence, children who are exposed to violence, whether it be domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, child neglect. And each agency that is involved in this initiative have worked together for about 20 years. Each one has a particular area of expertise that they bring to the collaboration. And we serve about 375 families per year. And it is, we serve South Dade because our families are transient somewhat. So they may be in Homestead today and Florida City tomorrow, and we continue to serve those families.
Mayor, this grant award is for $608,089.
Yes.
Question from council, Vice Mayor?
Yes, I have a question. And looking at this for the communities and schools portion with the care coordinators
Yes.
at Homestead Middle School, was there data to substantiate the need for a care coordinator in that particular school?
Yes, basically that is a school where a lot of our referrals come from. It's one of our highest referral source. And we felt it would be advantageous to have that care coordinator there at the school site. There is currently one at Homestead Senior, which I'm sure you're aware of, and they have worked very closely with us. So this is a trial basis, a new year. We asked for the care coordinator at Homestead Middle as well.
So this is an hourly position?
Yes,
at
it
the
is.
school? So
Yes,
are they there daily?
Excuse me?
Are the care coordinators at the schools daily?
It's going to be one care coordinator, and he will be there 20 hours a week.
20 hours a week. How many kids are at Homestead Middle School that require these services and support?
Communities and Schools is here. They could probably address that better than I could.
Okay.
Just give us your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Elisa Linares, and what was the other thing?
Just your address, the company address.
Oh, with Communities and Schools, 11925 Southwest 137th Avenue.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Communities and Schools, we case manage about 60 to 80 students in a school. So at Homestead Senior, they will reach around 60 to 80. There's full-time, but at Homestead Middle, they're going to be part-time, so probably around 40 to 50 students. And we work very closely with the school administration to identify the students that will be served and making sure that they are the ones that fall in within the grant requirements and are the ones most needing of the services.
So what does the service look like at the school?
Care coordination starts with a needs assessment, and the site coordinator will meet with each individual student and their family to decipher what services they are going to need. And so they can range from something as complex as counseling, social services, connecting them with community resources, to making sure they have school supplies, food, basically whatever they need, the family and the students, so that the students are improving their attendance, behavior, and course performance.
That was my next question. How do you track or determine the effectiveness of the program with the particular children you're working with?
We look at attendance, behavior, and course performance, and we work closely with the school district to get that data from the school district.
Okay, so you look at the early warning indicators.
Correct.
To determine
Correct.
how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the work was defined, and I'm sure it is, and that you're monitoring and tracking the effectiveness to making sure we're not just spinning on our wheels, but we're actually having an impact on those students that have a lot of challenges.
Correct.
that they
We
have to
we
overcome.
work with we'll look at report cards, at early warning indicators, and then the Children's Trust also has a plethora of assessments, family surveys that we do as well to measure our outcomes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor. Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so just kind of on the same route that Vice Mayor just mentioned in regards to the care coordinator at the school. Is Homestead the only school that you're providing the services at?
Homestead Senior and Homestead Middle.
Okay. Yeah, and I recall, to the council back when I worked with Aspida, which I see a good friend of mine, Carlos Salgado, which is director of Infamilia. We had an outreach counselor, which was myself, at the school for about the same amount of hours on a weekly basis. So I've been there and I worked with the kids, and I could tell you that it makes a great impact and a difference for someone that's there just to listen to them and to help them out in any case possible. So kudos to what you're doing there and to the organization for this grant that you're getting. But I just wanted to know what other schools were being serviced as well. So there's Homestead Middle, Homestead Senior.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just have one more question for Sandy. Now, this is a middle school and high school, which we know are critical age groups. Have you considered elementary?
Oh, we serve all schools. in
But the care
Homestead Place.
coordinator position?
The care coordinator, well, we're doing it on a trial basis this year at
Okay.
Homestead Middle. And depending on what the results are, what the testing scores are, and what, for those that we serve, then that will give us the leverage to ask for additional
Okay.
care coordination in the elementary.
Because working with elementary students, I know they have severe challenges when they're dealing with issues like this, and I think they're most impacted. If you had to compare the elementary, middle, and high, the elementary group have a lot of challenges.
And we do receive daily referrals from all of the schools in Homestead to SOS, and we filter those out to all of the agencies. Though we may not have one on site, we
Okay.
still serve those
But you still
families.
support them, just not someone in-house
Right,
to
correct.
support them at the school?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor? Motion carries. Tab 8.
Mayor, the water treatment facilities must process and treat the city's potable drinking water in a safe and efficient manner as required by the regulatory agencies Durham, South Florida Water Management District, FDOH, EPA, and DEP by installing a SCADA system, which stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. The process is handled in a more efficient, safe, and also more cost-effective manner as the SCADA system controls the dosing of chemicals, flows, and pressures for treatment as opposed to manually feeding the distribution system as is currently being done. The project consists of installing this system, communications telemetry at the water treatment facilities at Whitcop, 505 Northwest 9th, Harris Field, 1034 North Homestead, Tennessee Pump Station, 415 Northeast 12th Avenue. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution and authorize City Manager to enter into an agreement with Rocha Controls to install SCADA telemetry at Whitcop, Harris Field, and Tennessee Pump Stations. The project is part of the City of Homestead's Capital Improvement Plan, CIP number 331. The racetrack facility will be addressed in a subsequent project.
Questions from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor? Motion carries. Tab 9.
Carlos, do you want to?
Mayor and Council, staff recommends that the Mayor and Council adopt the attached resolution providing for the following. A proposed operating millage rate of 5.9215 per $1,000 of the assessed value of ad valorem taxation for real and personal property within the City of Homestead. This millage rate is the same as last year's millage rate and to be implemented beginning on October 1st, 2017 and ending on September 30th, 2018, which is fiscal year 2018. And also proposed voted debt millage rate of 0.5575 per $1,000 of assessed value of ad valorem taxation for real and personal property within the City of Homestead. This millage rate reflects a 0.0359 reduction from last year's debt millage rate of 0.5934 and to be implemented beginning on October 1st, 2017 and ending on September 30th, 2018, fiscal year 2018. This is the budget impact at a gross taxable value of $2,608,632,678. An operating millage rate of 5.9215 mils will yield ad valorem revenues at 95% for the city of $13,284,941 and $1,389,726 for the Community Redevelopment Agency. This is a total of $14,674,667. At a gross taxable value of $2,608,632,678, a debt millage rate of 0.5575 mils will yield a revenue at 95% for the debt service of $1,381,597 pursuant to Section 200.081 of the Florida statute limits the maximum operating millage rate that the municipalities may levy to 10 mils.
We're required to send that now prior to, we have to send it to the state now?
The resolution, the city has to certify by August 4th of this year what the proposed millage rate will be, and then later in the month of August, the county sends out the trim notices to all the residents.
Questions from council? Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 10.
Mayor, this is a renewal for our auditor Markham LLP Accountants and Advisors for auditing services for an additional 1 year in the total amount of $134,997. This contract covers auditing services for the financial audit, federal single audit, state single audit, and special compliance audits, the Children's Trust and GOB for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2017. Subsequent annual renewal may be mutually agreed to.
Questions from council? Obviously, they've been with us for years.
Yes.
Is there a motion? Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 11.
I'll read it and we'll see. Mayor, at the request of the council, The resolution setting forth the council meeting procedures and agenda format has been revised to provide a consistent deadline of 12 noon on the Wednesday prior to a regularly scheduled meeting for council members' submission of both information and report items and action items. The provision in the resolution providing for the distribution of the agenda on the Friday prior to the meeting and permitting staff to add items to the agenda until 12 noon on the Monday prior to the meeting remain unchanged. So this is a motion to approve resolution amending the council meeting procedures.
This was due to the fact there was a little bit of lack of clarity, or the time slots were a little different in the councils, so it kind of clears everything up.
Correct. There was 2 different time periods to submit informational items versus action items, so this just makes that consistent. And that's all that this does.
Okay. Any questions from council? Is there a motion? Second? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Tab 12.
Mayor, this is a proposal that we received from the owner of the Keysgate Golf Course. It's a concept really more than a proposal, and the idea here is for the city to apply for, to submit an application for the county's Economic Development Fund. And what I'm told is that the sooner you get your application in, the sooner you get in the queue for consideration. And so the idea here was to submit this to you all for consideration for this concept. And if you're okay with staff working on this, we'll begin working on the application, getting it in. Of course, there'll be details along the way that we'll need to come back to you on. We don't believe just submitting the application binds you to anything, but it just starts the process, gets us as staff to start working on it, and then get into the queue with the county. The idea of submitting it before talking to you, we just wanted to make sure, since yet as a group hadn't talked about this type of a concept before, so just wanted to make sure that you had some interest in at least us starting the process.
And nothing goes anywhere until there's some sort of opinion back from the county as to the process, as far as whether we qualify or meet the requirements, or?
The idea is, unless we learn anything as we're preparing the application, we think what we'll be able to do is draft an application, submit it, and then along the way there may be some issues or policy questions we have for you. But at this time, we want to just make sure that you're okay with us working on this and submitting it, understanding that it doesn't bind us to anything, and that if there's something along the way that does create some major policy questions for you, that we'll come back to you at some point.
Questions? Mr. Shelley, did you have a question? Mr. Burgess, anybody? Mr. Burgess?
Is there anybody here from the party that would like us to put this in for them, that we can ask a few questions of? Anybody from the golf course official representation? I mean, we make people that want $300 waive of fees answer questions before we let them waive fees, and here we are wanting to give somebody $10 million or opportunity without anybody here representing them. Well, when we get there, I'm trying to see if anybody's here from the golf course to answer my questions that I have about their proposal they've sent. And that's up to the mayor, that's not up to me, but.
There's no one here, though. So
Okay.
there's no one here.
I was just wondering how we came up with a valuation of $10 million when it was bought for $4 million recently. How we came up with, when they came to us prior, they only had 68 jobs, or 80, maybe 80 jobs listed. Now we're at 200. I'm just trying to figure out how we get to these numbers that they've proposed to us tonight, and what the final time frame of a hotel that would go with a convention center and things like that.
Mr. Manager, that's questions that will come out of this.
Well,
this
I want to make
process.
sure.
I agree. I think they should be put on the record. Your concern should be put on the record. But I think at the same time, is that what you anticipate working through these issues with staff?
The anticipation is that there's going to be a lot of staff work that's involved in inventorying all the questions and issues, both in terms of costs, operations, ownership, lease scope, and a whole bunch of other things, assumptions. All that work has to start. We didn't want to start doing that work until we understood first if you had an interest in us working on this project. And so
And
we
then
think,
one
we
of my
think we'll
questions,
be able to answer many more questions as this thing unfolds. What we didn't want to do is start the work until we got some direction, and then also, if the idea here is for us to put something in preliminarily so that we can at least get into the queue. And then, of course, as we start filling in the blanks here and understanding the details, if you decide at some point you'd like us to withdraw the application, you'll always have that opportunity. But since this was a function of how quickly can you get the application in before somebody else does, because from what we're told, it's a first come, first serve type process. And we'll have many more. We as staff certainly will have a bunch of questions already, and we'll have more along the way. And I'm sure each of you will have questions along the way, and we'll do the best we can to answer them as the information comes in.
well, I would request then, since I still have the floor, that before any draft is sent into the county, that we discuss this at a public meeting.
Okay, so I think that's the direction we're looking for, is do
That
we
would be
prepare
my
the draft
request.
and submit the draft, or do we prepare the draft and
Because
bring it back to you?
There's details that, I mean, and questions that I'm not able to get answered tonight because the applicant, quote-unquote applicant, isn't here to answer them.
Well, technically, the city would be the applicant.
I understand, but we're being asked by somebody.
I understand. So it's totally the will of the council how you want to approach this, whether it's we draft an application and bring it back to you for a final decision on whether we submit, or whether you're okay with us submitting something preliminarily. We'll draft it, submit it, and then there'll be a whole lot of process once the submission goes in. So, or the third one is no staff work, nothing, and you're not interested.
Let me get some other comments. Anything else, Mr. Burgess? No, I'll reserve. Okay. Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to say that I guess the opportunity to get some of our tax dollars back, or this, in this case is GOB Economic Development Bond. You know, our tax dollars are going out, whether we get this $10 million or not, it will go to someone else. So I just want to say, if that's something that we could get, I'd be in favor for it, first of all. Second, I think the important item that we're saying to us today is that you could go ahead and submit for this application, get in the queue, and then you could come back to us to start working on the details in which staff will start to get involved in. Or, as it's saying right now, we start working on the details first, and if it's right, then we submit to get into the queue, in which is it possible that we start going down on the queue on that. So I understand the importance.
Or the third one is to say, no, thank you.
Well, I mean,
Just to
Right,
make
yeah.
sure we have all the options on the table.
I'm not for the no thank you.
Okay.
Let's get something done. And, you know, and that, I think that something needs to be done in the golf course in that community. So I don't think it just remains the same the way it is. It's not good. So I'm in favor in moving forward on this. And I guess the important question that we need to answer today is that, do we get in queue first, start working on some of the details, or do we start working on the details and then get in queue? Or see if we want to get in queue? Is that correct?
Right, and I think the issue about the details is, I suspect as we start going through this, the question will come up as to what does something like this cost to operate long-term? And those are probably questions that are going to take a lot longer than a day or a week, and
Right.
therefore, if you're really interested in this concept, we think there's some wisdom to putting the application. If it doesn't cost you anything to put the proposal in, if it doesn't cost you anything and it doesn't bind you, if you're interested. If you're not interested, or you feel you really want everything totally analyzed first before you formally submit, that's totally your call, and we don't really have, it's just a function of how long will that take, and we think it'll take a good amount of time. For example, what are the actual costs of renovating both this, a convention center? What exactly is that in terms of what does that look like? How does it operate? What are the cost implications? Who's running it? How does the whole thing work? And then a golf course, projected expenditures and revenues, and where you end up with that. And then also, if we're saying, for example, that it's a contribution matching fund of $10 million, is that a justifiable number? We know what the owner has told us. obviously, we'd have to do some analysis on that. All these questions are complicated questions, and I don't think you're going to get those answers in a week or two, and therefore, every week that goes by is another week or two that goes by that you're not in the queue, but that may be okay for you as well. I just wanted to make sure you understood.
Right, but we can get in the queue and get let's put our position in there. Let's get on that queue ahead of everyone. And then once we get in place, then we could start again working on those details. And at some point, if this is something that we don't think it works for us because of a policy or because of whatever the case, we could pull out of this?
Yes.
Okay.
And the other thing is, tomorrow, some other government or somebody else could go in and apply, and we'll be one behind anyway. So
Right.
I can't guarantee that nobody is going to submit tomorrow. I don't think we'll be able to submit by tomorrow, but we certainly, if the direction is to apply, we're going to get the lawyers together and work to get this thing processed and get it in.
Yeah, once this kind of gets out, and, we don't know what other municipalities are doing, whether they've already applied for it or going for this, but once they find out that this is available, it's economic development dollars, and any city with an economic development team is going to, at least start looking into it and go after it.
To be clear on availability, our understanding is that there's some sort of projects that were designated at the county that are likely to drop off, and so whoever's in the queue first then becomes the next one to discuss whether that money that dropped off can now be applied to another project.
So I'm for getting in queue, and then we can start working on the details, because I think that's the matter of importance here. Because I know that if we start trying to get all these answers, it's going to take a while. We're going to be down the bottom of the queue, and for that, don't even just talk about it.
In the meantime, if you as a group have questions or you have certain things that you want looked at as the staff is doing their work, we're happy to do that as well.
Okay, I'm for.
Ms. Alser. Mr. Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, kind of as Councilman Maldonado was stated, I have no objection to moving forward with this. I think that it's, something needs to be done with that golf course. We need to find a way to improve it, to make it better, to improve the property values of the people that surround it. It's something that's been worked on, I know, for a while, and of all the ideas that have come across in front of us, this is the best of the bunch so far as potentially being able to tap dollars that are already, that the taxpayers have already paid, as Councilman Mano pointed out, that are in the county coffers that we can maybe retrieve at the city and apply to our city and for our residents' purposes, and doesn't take away from any additional projects that we're already in the queue or that we're working on. And so I think this is something I would like to move forward and pursue. However, the only caveat to that is as long as whatever we submit as part of our application or once the application process starts, that it doesn't bind us, that it doesn't somehow say that whatever was here preliminarily is what we're now stuck with as far as a final product, because we may find that some of this is or is not feasible, the numbers may need to change, things of that nature. Or more importantly, what our biggest concern is I don't think it's a great move for the city to run a golf course, because I don't think those things have been, are not necessarily very profitable at times, or you have to run them very, very well, and can become very costly. So I'm concerned about the city actually operating a golf course long term. So that's something I also want to make sure that when we submit our application, that doesn't somehow bind us now to have to operate it. We're here, they're proposing an operator, which I think is a good idea, bring somebody in to run it. But if that doesn't exist or no one's willing to take it on, then does it fall back on us? So those are questions that I do have, and so as long as those can be answered along the way, and hopefully find a way to make this work so that we can receive the dollars and the sooner as possible to actually get this project moving forward, then I do support at least moving it forward, getting in the queue, and then getting the details added to it later so that we can get something going over there.
Ms. Alser. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I firmly believe that as a city, we're putting a lot into our downtown district to create some synergy and life in the downtown. And I believe that if there are any other opportunities to further position Homestead to be not just a gateway, but a destination, then I'm interested in moving in that direction. But I'm going to ask you some questions, and they may be a bit rhetorical, but I'm going to ask them anyway. Is it unusual for government agencies to enter into P3 partnerships? Through the mayor?
No.
No. So this has been done before?
Yes.
Have we entered into any P3 partnerships?
Yes.
With who?
With Axiom and on the downtown project.
Right. So this isn't unusual. to enter into these P3 partnerships. So I'm very much interested in moving forward with this, but as has been articulated up here, definitely the devil is in the details, and I'm interested in seeing and hearing what those details are. So in order to do that, we have to move forward and flesh those details out. But I think it's proper for that to come back to us before it is submitted. I don't think what's important is getting in queue, because I doubt if the bonds are given to communities based on the number in which they've been submitted, but in fact the quality of the application. So I'm not concerned about a queue. I would just like to see it before it's moved forward to ensure that I'm comfortable with what is in the application.
That's all, Vice Mayor. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Roth?
Yeah, just to reiterate, I guess, the sentiment of Councilman Maldonado and Stephen Shelley and the Vice Mayor. This is the first step. We don't know if this is even going to come to be. And to squander an opportunity to revitalize a golf course that I once used to go there and have Sunday brunches at the clubhouse many years ago, and did play golf at the golf course. Not that I was any good, but I did use the facility once in a while. This is the perfect opportunity to at least explore the ability for us to rejuvenate that golf course and bring it back to life. We've waited a few years now, and I'm proud to say that we're in the right direction, I believe. If we can get this money from the county, which is our money already, taxpayers' money that we've all contributed to, it's going to be a great start in the right direction. And obviously, we want to protect the city's interests as well. And as we move forward with these talks with the developer, you can bet I'll be up here trying to protect you as well. So I'm all for this. Let's move it forward. I think we need to do it as quickly as we can just to get in the queue. I have tremendous faith and trust in our city manager and staff that they're going to put together a very nice application, and they're going to do everything they can to see that this works. This is something that I truly believe we need. I agree with the Vice Mayor that we spent a lot of money in the downtown district, and revitalizing the golf course will once again, along with the other amenities that we have in the city, will create it as a destination spot instead of a pass-through spot for the rest of the country to come and enjoy. So with that, I'll yield, and you have my full support, City Manager.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manager, the question, I mean, the form that's attached, you fill that out. How long do you think it would take to get that form back to us? It seems to be kind of very generic. I won't hold you to it. It's not going to be 6 months to get this form back to us.
No, it won't. It won't be 6 months. I think it's just a question of, at some point, we're going to want to have staff or the lawyers interact with the county staff that deals with this, just to see, is there anything that requires some analysis or a process or whatever. So I'm reluctant to say, geez, I can have this on the agenda for you on Friday so that we can be at the next council meeting. But on the other hand, I don't know whether it's a week or a month. I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Well,
what I don't want to do is overpromise here, and I just, we may be able to get this done in a couple of days, or it may take a little longer. I'm not sure.
I guess the question
It'll certainly be top priority, and we'll start working on it. If it's your direction, we'll start working on it tomorrow morning.
What I'm hearing from the council is they want to see this form before it goes to the county. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm not sure. I heard two different things, so we'll take whatever direction. We heard some say they want us to get it in the queue, and some say they'd rather wait for us to get it processed first and come back to you before we submit it. So whatever you want to do.
Let's clarify that right now.
Please.
Is there anyone that's opposed to us seeing this before the manager or the staff sends it to the county? Is anyone opposed to that? Do we want to see that back here before it goes to the county?
I don't care. I don't need to see it.
Okay, Vice Mayor.
Okay. There's a lot of talk about this queue. So is there a deadline for this application?
I'm not aware of any deadline. The only thing we were told by the person that uh, proposed this idea was, or there was a person that this owner was relying on that seemed to know the process, and she basically said, the sooner you get in the queue, the sooner they start to deal with it. I don't know if that's true or not, and so we would have to obviously ask.
So we need to vet that because I seriously doubt this is awarded in the order in which it was received.
I can't speak to that one way or the other.
Yeah.
I can say, Vice Mayor, that there was a preference given if it met the criteria and you were third in line instead of fifth in line, the money was gone when it got to you at number 5. So I think that's what, this project was shovel ready, I think, at Palmetto Bay. That project
Right.
fell out. Everybody else in the,
Mhm.
kind of moved up, and so
I
they
remember
became in a higher, stronger position. So there is some
So the
question.
queue is important.
There is some question, there is some justification saying the quicker you get in the line, if if everybody falls out in front of you, you're farther up the food chain at that particular point. So there's a balance.
When we went through this process for the money for the $1.5 million for the parking garage project, it appeared as if they go it's like a rolling admissions type thing.
Okay.
But that being said, for all I know, they can change that rule. I don't really know. Their system is somewhat arcane, so it's hard to fully understand. And that money became available at that point because our county commissioner basically identified it as a project that had
Right.
dropped off and got us in the queue, and so the timing seemed to matter at the time we were applying for that one. But I don't want to make any statements here that end up being untrue.
Okay, well, I would think it would be more proper to come back to the council before it's submitted. However, I respectfully yield to the will of the majority.
Anything else, ma'am? Mr. Burgess? Sorry. Mr. Roth, sorry.
This is just an application, is that right, George? They're not asking for any supporting documentation at this point?
We intend to submit it as an application as we're going through the steps involved and their office tells us they need something more, that is more of a policy issue, then we'll come back to you and say we can't move forward with the application. But it appears as if we're able to put together what we have here and submit it and then take the ride with their process, because there's no doubt along the way they're going to have a whole bunch of questions, as will we. I mean, the largest question for us is, ultimately, if there's a loss, an operating loss here on an annual basis, who would be responsible for that? And also, there's the language in there about a long-term lease. Well, what exactly is long-term, and what does that look like? And so we have a whole lot of questions, and our expectation is that we can submit something preliminarily that gets us to we're in the queue. But whether that'll be sufficient for them or not, I guess that would be determined once they review the application.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm saying. This is simply the starting point, to submit this application, to get it to the county. And then, I'm looking through this application, it's about 4 or 5 pages. It's not very detailed, and they ask for just a few little things, maybe, what one of the questions on here is pretty simple. It says, explain how this proposed project will spur economic development, attract new business to Miami-Dade County, and create jobs. You could ask any one of us up here to write that, and we may come up with a different answer. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that we get this thing submitted. This is $10 million. This is not, a $50,000 grant. This is a huge sum of money, and this can't be all they're going to require from this application. But this gets us in line first, and then we can start answering to the questions.
I would
that
be
they ask.
surprised if this is 1/10 of what
Yeah,
they're going to need.
I see
And
that.
my guess is we're going to need a whole lot of, you're all, as a policymaking group, going to need a whole lot of more information before you even commit to anything, because we don't know what the projected operating, loss or gains would be, and we also don't know on a convention center, what's the market demand for something like that? What would be the expense of something
Sure,
like
sure.
that? There's a whole lot of things that we don't know yet.
And I get all that. And if we are not comfortable with anything that comes up during the conversations, we can always pull back out. We can always say, you know what, this doesn't work for the city. This is not fair to our residents, to put us on the hook for all these expenses, which we don't even know what they are yet. But
And one other thing I can add is, you as a body, assuming you authorize us to draft the application and submit it, and all of a sudden you look at it, or you decide you don't want this after all, you can call a special meeting and direct us to withdraw it at any time. So there's not a whole lot of risk in terms of you getting together and just pulling the application. You would have all that authority and more.
right, so there's really not a lot, and with all due respect to the process, as I said before, I have a lot of faith and trust in what your office does, Mr. Manager, and I'm for a time of the essence type thing. Just get us in line, and as you guys have worked your magic in the past, you'll work your magic in the future with this one if that's to be for the city. And I think we just move forward with it.
And sometimes grants are not worth the grant,
Right.
So most of the time, you saw some of the grants today, is we're very aggressive about grants. This one happens to come from somebody else as the idea. But along the way, sometimes we see, particularly with police grants, sometimes the strings attached to so much that it's just not worth it. So all of that will be vetted, and at some point we'll know whether this is whether there's too much risk involved here, or if somebody is willing to give you $10 million, in essence, it's, I say free money, some of the taxpayers paid for it, but, at some point, if you get $10 million and you don't have any risk, and you get a golf course for whatever period of time, that could be a good argument to be made for that. On the other hand, if the analysis comes back that somebody's going to have to absorb the loss, and the losses are $1 million a year potentially or more, then you just make that policy call on whether the rewards are too risk. The risk doesn't justify the rewards.
Right. I agree. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shelley?
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of the discussion's already been had. I mean, I think the key for me is, if we have the ability, again, my caveat was assuming we have the ability to make those changes, or to not be stuck with something, not committed or bound by anything that's proposed as part of this application, then I support it. I think it is key, and what I understand is that there is a queue, and there is the sooner you get it in, and then you can kind of figure it out as you go. And if that is in fact correct, then I have no problem with at least getting in the queue. I assume you can amend the application. I assume that through the process you'll change terms, and we'll all be able to get terms that we're agreeable to, because within the terms themselves, there are a lot of fuzziness, and I expect the county, before they issued $10 million to anybody, would probably want more details of that as well, and so I expect it to get vetted out.
Also, one thing about this application is, once you have it, we submit it, and there's something on there that you don't agree with, this questionnaire, explain how this proposed project will spur economic development and attract new businesses. We're going to fill in those blanks. Some of you may not agree with our answer. So at some point, if the four of you don't agree, we can always pull it or amend it or whatever, but some of this is subjective, which is the reason why we came with you, because it's pure policy, and it's a function of opinion. Some people in Hialeah may not think it's a good idea for county money to be used for a golf course in Homestead. There'll be that kind of debate at the county hall as well.
Correct. Yeah, I would expect that there would be, and I think for us, I mean, it's something that our community wants. It's something I think that will be great for our community if we can receive dollars, and we are found to be a worthy cause to build a golf course and get it allocated. So I think it's something we should pursue. I think it's something that we should try to make sure that we don't hinder our case. And so if submitting it quicker to get into the queue helps our cause to be considered for the dollars, then I'm in favor of that, so long as it doesn't bind us to anything or result in us not being able to make changes along the way. Then I would be concerned, because there isn't enough detail in here yet to know exactly is this good or bad, potentially for the city, as far as you mentioned, continuing operating costs, losses each year, et cetera. But I would like to go ahead and at least move it forward, assuming that works out.
And one thing we didn't say enough, I think, is that this could go to the floor of the county commission, and they say, not interested. Right? We have other priorities. We don't want to do that.
Yeah, my concern was that I know we do have a lot of irons in the fire as it is, and so to have you guys have to drop everything that's going on right now to try to get us all the answers we need within a week or 2 weeks or a month, could further delay other processes and just overwhelm. So I think that this, if it works, we could get in the queue and then vet it as we're going through the process, then I think that might work.
We'll need an expert on some of these items, like a golf expert is going to have to help us with an analysis of what does this look like operationally, and so those things won't happen overnight.
Right, okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Burgess? Thank you. You spoke just as a golf expert. Is this something that, do we have any kind of budget that we're going to set for this, or is this an open-ended budget as we do this process and have to hire people and pay attorneys and things like that? Is the applicant willing to help us absorb or to do some of that work for us, or have we gotten there, or is this all going to be shouldered by our taxpayers?
That's something we're going to have to, we certainly can raise that if the property owner is willing. We would just want to make sure that this is our expert and not the property owners, because obviously whatever data and analysis is done, we're going to, if we're ultimately responsible, we're going to want to make sure that we have the right advice. What we'll likely do, see, we don't think the attorneys drafting the application will cost a whole lot. We do think, though,
Not just the application, but as we go through the contract
we're
and all.
going to inventory the types of experts that we're going to need and the studies that we're going to need, and then obviously we'll get some estimates from the people in the field to see what this costs, and then likely we'll come back to you with an action plan.
So that would be soon thereafter, before a lot of effort is put into it? I mean, this application, I agree, doesn't take a lot of effort. It doesn't appear to anyway on the reading it.
Yeah, we
And
wouldn't.
so from there, we would try to build some sort of plan of action for the city as to what and who and how much they would cost for us to work through this process?
Correct. And truthfully, I think the harder part is going to be the convention center part, because there's golf courses, at least we have a recreation department. We have a whole lot of cities have golf courses, and there's a whole lot that you can draw from. Convention centers are a much more niche type business, and there's also categories. A larger convention center in a large city is much different than a smaller one in a smaller city. So we're going to have to try to figure out who knows most about that, and we can assess the risk and the reward.
Right. Well,
And for all I know, a convention center could generate millions of dollars in profit, or it could be a very costly venture. I don't know. So
that was one of my concerns too, is as we enter into this, does the city just keep going forward with whatever it costs us to get our answers and analysis and stuff like that? And like everybody has stated, this application is very simple for the get-go there, it appears. But after that, I think we've got some really detailed stuff that needs to be worked out that could be very, very costly, that we need to come up with a plan for also as we move forward and be ready to answer those questions, because as we know, experts don't come cheap anywhere in the world. And we're looking at a lot of work for both our staff and outside staff, it would appear, as we move forward.
also, what we're going to do is obviously at some point have a longer discussion with the property owner to get the answers to the questions. What type of lease are we talking about here? How did they come up with the $10 million contribution? What happens if there's losses? There's a whole lot of things we're going to need at least answers from the property owner as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Maldonado?
Thank you, Mayor. Just questions to the manager through the chair. Basically, this is falling under an economic development. Our position is economic development. This is how we'll approach the county. This is the word or the vehicle that's being used in order to restore, a facility that's not being used and is basically sitting vacant. So economic development would be the vehicle?
That's the vehicle, and that's also going to be, I think, the plus or minus in terms of their consideration is I think they'll be less interested in the golf course as they will be how a convention center impacts them one way or the other, because certainly there's the county and the city, there's convention centers, and there's people with interests. So whether there's winners or losers with us having our convention center here in Homestead, I think that'll also add to those who are supportive or opposed to some type of application.
And I'm sure at some point we'll get the community's input on the residents that reside there to get their feedback. And I'm sure I'm sure a lot of them are here, and then many that are listening would want to know, what's going to happen, what's coming into my community. So I know that they want to be involved. But this can also become like a P3. And so I guess my question is, and I know Councilman Burgess has brought that up, was the money that we're putting into this. And I think that we need to understand that whenever we go into any venture that has economic development, there's always an investment on behalf of the city. That's what we did when we went out to do our economic development in the downtown. Is that not correct, Mr. Manager?
Right, and one important distinction here, which could be answered very quickly, is in the case of the garage, not only did all that funding come from outside sources, but we had assessed we're going to be opening up this large garage, and will that be generating revenue or will it be generating losses? Particularly the first couple of years, same thing with a retail liner. And the idea was with the P3 process, the burden of loss was put on the developer, and therefore for the first 20 years, if that garage is bleeding money, we as a city are not liable for that. So our first question to the developer here would be, will they take any responsibility for those losses and the rewards? Because by the way, assuming the risk also means you're giving up the rewards. The garage could be a profit generator, but for the first 20 years, as you assess the risk and reward, the idea was let the garage get its footing, and you'll have another 100 years to collect those revenues. The same thing here with this is if a convention center and a golf course, if a P3 partner, whether it's the owner or somebody else, is willing to accept the risks and the rewards, and you're willing to give up the potential rewards, that makes this process for you, I think, a whole lot easier. We won't know whether there's somebody out there until that, and that also raises the question of if you may not even need to do an analysis if in fact you have a P3 partner that says, hey, look, we'll build the whole thing and you don't have to worry about anything. You still may want the analysis just to understand if there's more likely profits than losses. You may not want to give that out to a private partner either. So that would be probably why having an analysis yourself would help you at least make that decision. But there's a whole lot of ways we can go. We just didn't want to start any of this until we had this conversation.
Right. And I think, the point that I wanted to make, and since that, this is not our first rodeo. We've already done this. You and your staff, our lawyers, our staff here, yourself, your team, has ensured that this project that we have down in the downtown area is not going to be a loss for us. And so I echo Councilman Roth, is what he's saying is that says we trust, we have a good track record with our team here. We trust in how you make sure that you protect our residents. You know that's the most important to us. I think everyone up here and anyone that's sitting here should understand and knows that this council and this staff make sure that the people first, because that's who we work for, that's who we represent. So that's why you're sitting there, because we're trusting in any process that we go into. We go into it with trust, knowing how you work and that you're able to make sure that we're not in the wrong or in a bad position. So again, this is not our first time we're doing this, so that's why I'm comfortable in saying get us in the queue and we'll go from there. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manager, this is a municipal grant only. This is the reason why the city's involved, is that the grant money can only come to a municipality.
Right, and the theory here, which the proposal rests on, is that the county will feel comfortable that it's a long-term lease, and therefore typically it requires some ownership, but we'll see. The long-term lease depends on, if long-term lease according to this language means 4 years, then I think they'll have a harder time than if it's a long-term lease.
Well, I think we need to, my personal feeling is I think we need to go forward and at least see if it's got any legs at all at the county. We'll find out, from, this process. I particularly don't need to see the form filled out for me. That's my opinion. The questions like, it's kind of just a question and answer scenario. So you're going to fill out the form to the best possible way to explain to the county how we're going to benefit their money.
Right. And then one other thing that we failed to mention here is, I know there's plenty of people in the community that are one side or the other on this whole golf course issue. The county also has its own public process. So people who like this or don't like this are going to have plenty of opportunities to engage with their county officials as well. So there'll be an extra level of vetting through this whole process.
I mean, you know, the discussion that we have tonight, whether to move forward or not, there's way more to this.
Way more to come.
Way more to this down the road. We're certainly not going to hit a home run tonight.
Right, I don't want to create a false expectation.
That's what I'm saying.
On the other hand, I don't want to be defeatist either. Every time we apply for something, you could see staff brought you opportunities. Some of them involve you all knocking the halls of the state legislature, and so each one of them are unique in their own process, and we'll do everything we can to win, but we also will advise you if there's some risks involved for you as well.
Well, I just wanted everybody to realize that this is step one of a very, very long process, and there's certainly no guarantees that any of this is going to come to fruition because the county is the county. That's a whole bureaucracy. That's 13 commissioners that we don't turn out a lot of votes down here. They turn out a lot of votes in some other communities. So we have to realize we're in an uphill battle, but we're positioned in a good spot because the money, has fallen down a couple of notches, and we may be in a position where we could slide ourselves in.
And the deciders at the county level are representatives of the people. Everybody in Homestead has the right to engage with their county mayor and their county commissioners and be a part of the process.
But I think, to that point, I believe where we need to realize we may need to hit the road is down the road a little bit, not necessarily, the application process. We're not even in line for it, but there will be a time when we may have to do some politicking upstream and, compete for these dollars as a community, because there are going to be others that are going to try to pull it away, as we are trying to take that money. So, but I'm in favor of moving forward with it. I'm in favor of getting in line as quick as possible, as quickly as you can get the form. I don't need to see it because I think it's a kind of a form. And then I think we just get in line and then we just follow the trail and see where it takes us. But it's a long road we're embarking on. And if the developer has some juice, maybe that helps us too. I don't know, but I think it's worth a try. We're not going to have any public discussion, but if you want to stand up and be counted that you're here on behalf of this, if you want us to do this, stand up so we can at least see that you're here for that. Okay, pretty much more than half the room. So there'll be a lot more time for public discussion. Thanks for coming out tonight and at least, hearing what we're talking about and what our discussions are, because I think there's a consensus to move forward. Is there a motion? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Moving forward. Motion goes. We're going to go forward to the county. Okay, tab 13, Mr. Manager, this is just...
Councilman Williams had brought this up. If we want to defer that, we can bring it up at the next COW if you'd like.
I remember the last meeting, he just wanted to stay on the agenda. So let's just keep putting it back on for discussion. Vice Mayor?
Yes, I just have a question.
Oh, sorry.
I just have a question with this. I understand that all of us had decided on different areas that we wanted to target, but for me, I think there needs to be a timeline, some type of structure to determine what should happen first, what should happen next, as opposed to us just going out there, just working on our own. I need a bit more structure for this, so I kind of wanted to put it on the record so that when it comes back or Councilman reads the minutes, that since this is his baby, he's married to it, it's in his district, that there be some structure to this and a timeline as far as what should happen first, second, next, or what have you. That's what would be helpful for me. Thank you.
Mr. Manager, is there any staff involvement in this at this point?
The direction we got was you all were going to assign yourselves each a portion of this and then let us know if you need us for something.
Okay. So, sounds like we might be needing some help here. Mr. Shelley?
Thank you. No, I agree. I think that we need some structure so we have a plan of attack versus kind of a kind of haphazard. I know that they had asked for me to look at code, or you guys had asked me to look at code of the master plan. So I have already spoken with Mr. Corradino. Mr. Corradino and his staff are going through and looking at the code to see what can we do as a quick fix. Are there anything in there that are low-hanging fruit where we can make some changes right away to make it more advantageous to encourage development or spur development within that area. So I know that's something that we are working on right off the bat, and hopefully we'll get some reports back by the next COW. But I agree. I think we need some sort of uniform direction and staff involvement and make sure that we can move this forward quickly. So.
Mayor, if I could ask that you defer this discussion, because Councilman Williams had at one point, Jerry reminded me, had suggested that he was going to structure this, so I'd hate to do something that undermines whatever his idea was for this process.
Vice Mayor?
No, but it was a recommendation that he structure it. So it's not like we're going to structure it ourselves. We want him to provide a structure. I want that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I thought that's what you said until the mayor said, I think we're going to need the staff's help, and so it seemed like it was coming our way.
But with all due respect to the council in general, they're all doing a lot, and to imply that we can take a facet of this, 50-page document and remedy this on a part-time basis with all of us with full-time. I think it's a heavy lift just for discussion. I think we're going to move it and just let it come up again, but I think that we're all a little on the same path, on the same track. 14, tab 14, Mr. Manager.
Carlos, you're on.
Carlos.
Mayor and Council, staff has prepared a presentation for tonight on the CIP projects. It's a 62-slide presentation. Alternatively, you have all received details on the CIPs, and unless you have any objection to any of these projects, basically what we're asking for council tonight is to move this forward. We will incorporate this into the proposed budget if the funding is available. The funding being requested for projects for the 2018 is a little over $8 million.
Carlos,
So we can.
I'm sorry. I have a specific question with regards to the electric utility, and it's on the tab 3 or page 3, and it's just a question that you've got Chrome Avenue widening and Campbell Drive widening and relocations of utilities. Why is isn't that a county state project? Shouldn't the project be funding that instead of the city? It's basically, it's $750,000 one line and then $500,000 on another line for moving utilities.
So that was put as to be programmed. In other words, we're trying to find the funding for that so that we don't have to come up with the money or a portion of it. So right now it's to be programmed.
Okay, but I guess my question is not why, if it's a state project and they're going to spend $50 million or $40 million to do this widening, why is Homestead Utilities getting tasked or having to pay the bill for that widening?
Okay. The reason we placed it in the category called to be programmed is we think we have a lot more dialogue with the state, and so we see this more as a negotiations right now to really determine who's going to pay for this. So it's in here not so much to commit to the funding as much as it is that the project's got to get done. If you want that, who's going to ultimately pay for it? That's going to have to come back to you at some point. We're hoping we have better news from the state. Right now, the news hasn't been good, but we think there's some room for negotiation, and we may also need your help along the way, because we are in agreement with you that they should pay for this, rather than us. On the other hand, what they're saying is if we don't pay for it, they may not do the project. So we think there's a lot more discussion that needs to take place.
I've heard you say that before. Not you, but they've told you that before, which is ridiculous. Because I know when Steve Shelley walked out with a 25-foot tape measure and knocked about $18 million off the project with a 25-foot tape measure. For them to come back now and say that they don't have the money to do this project, it's a little bit, it's disgusting, to be honest with you. So, to me, we've already done our part as a community to help this project go forward. This project has been on the table since 1992 or 93 or 94. It's just constantly, that alternate route of trucks and just four laning of chrome around the historic district. We've got to get it done. They can't say no. It's ridiculous, but that
Yeah,
stood out to me.
And you read our mind because we had a staff discussion, and it was originally in electric utilities. We moved it out of that column, and we think we have at least locked down some sort of a process to work with them. We think you're all going to need to get involved at some point. We thought we'd take the first run at them and see how we do, and then hopefully your lift is a little less heavy.
I know that we will be there if you need us. Mr. Shelley?
Yeah, just to echo that, because again, we saved them dollars by the way that we proposed to make the changes, and so that should have freed up the monies. But on top of that, I know I'd had discussions with them when I was working with them that not only were they, happy about the process, but they actually wanted to, or recommended that we ask that they move some of those palm trees along Campbell Drive for the electricity problems that we have, the ones that are all shaved almost bare. They'd actually offered at one time to remove all those extra palms and take them and move them someplace else. So that also needs to be part of that discussion. Remind them that they said that they would work on doing that, because that would also help save us some of our electricity issues going forward. But yeah, that should be a cost that they bear, not us.
I just saw it in there, and it didn't make sense to me, so I just wanted to ask the question.
And typically on the columns where we have to be program, we're not necessarily committing to who's paying for it. Ultimately, if we're going to ask the city to pay for it, we'll come back to you and then we'll have it on as an expenditure item. But right now, we think it's too speculative to commit to who's paying for it.
And Carlos, you said you had a 62-slide presentation that I don't think anybody up here wants to see. No disrespect. No disrespect, but
If you have questions, feel free. You have many bites at the apple. We'll have a couple of budget hearings. We'll have this. We try to get to this to you before the budget, because obviously CIP has some budgetary implications, but feel free to let us know if you have questions.
Mr. Cordino, did you want to see the budget presentation? Okay. All right. Just checking. Okay, is there a motion on tab 14? Do we need to move that? Do we need to move it or no? Just a presentation, okay. Any questions, comments from council? Is there a motion to adjourn? Adjourn. Second, all in favor? Thank you, good night.